Thanks, everyone. Today we are on another uh, great episode with Esteban. How are you, Esteban, today?
Everything fine here. We have an interesting month going on right here in Argentina because we are in the middle of the elections. We are having
Oh,
election for president, and everyone got like a big surprise when the the Libertarian party won, right? So it was quite a great surprise. All the previous experts or all the experts said that this guy was going to be the last one and was not going to win, and he won by some points. So now we are waiting for the general election. The last one was like a pre-election. Then we have the general one, and so we are having some interesting months here in Argentina.
right. Yes, I saw that, and it was actually interesting because everyone was expecting this clash between
Yes.
another Peronista and
Yes.
this
Yeah.
kind of like a neoconservative guy, right? And
Yeah.
then the libertarian
Yeah.
guy kind of went ahead. Does it mean that Argentina is kind of going away from this old model of
I don't know. I mean,
clashes?
I hope it does. It's a long way to go because I mean this candidate. Um, the problem with this candidate is that he doesn't have the enough votes in the Congress to pass all the laws he needs. So I mean, there is a huge like question mark about how is he going to rule the country without being able to pass any laws if he doesn't moderate and make agreements with the Peronist or with the other party. So I mean, it will be 2024 will be an interesting year for Argentina, definitely. So yeah, but let's hope it does. I mean, now in Argentina we are actually having a totally out of control inflation. We are going ahead towards 150% annual inflation by the end of this year. So yeah, as you are hearing, yeah, 150. So yeah, that's quite a crisis, mainly because of government spending a lot of more money than what they should and printing a lot of money. So I mean, yeah, let's hope that this new candidate brings a change in terms of fiscal policy and it turns to a more um, controlled government, right, or controlled government spending. So yeah, that's our hope.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So he, was it like the first round of the elections, or is it like,
Yes, here in Argentina we have like a pre-election where the less voted candidates are like are like they cannot present themselves to the general election, right? It's like a pre-election where they raise the small parties, right? So if you don't get like I think that it's 5% or 3% of the votes in this first pre-election, you cannot present yourself for president in the general election that will be on the 22nd of October. So now we have just four candidates for president. One of them has really really low votes, so I think that he's out of the equation, and the other three are, well, the Peronists that are the ones that are actually in the government. We have the main oppositor. There is a party called Cambiemos that in English is something like change, no, right? So that is like the main opposition to the Peronist, and the libertarian guy that unexpectedly got more votes than the other two. So I mean, let's. I mean, we are all like waiting for the general election to see what happened, right? But it could be a change because we are coming from lots of years of Peronist governments, and it will be a nice change to see something different, right? So yeah.
right, right? Awesome. Yeah, I mean that's a good time, and from that topic we can jump into like the main topic we actually wanted to discuss. But we're kind of couple of weeks late, but we wanted to discuss this really interesting thing happened in South Africa with BRICS. I mean, lots of things have passed, but what it kind of like is it's a disadvantage in terms of the news cycle. Yes, we are later, but we also can see from a perspective of like time, and we've seen what happened as a result of it for real. So, well, first of all, Argentina was invited to BRICS,
Yes,
as well as
recently.
Saudi Arabia and
Yeah, and
some other.
yeah, mainly there were mainly oil producer or oil producing countries and Argentina, right? So all the Middle East oil producing countries and Argentina were the ones invited to join on this new round, right? So BRICS are growing.
They also added someone from Africa, so they added
Yes,
Egypt,
I think that yes,
Egypt and Ethiopia. Uh,
yes.
so that's an interesting case. But my question here would be, what do you think from the economic perspective? I mean, BRICS is somewhat like a political slash economic union, like that's what it should be. But some experts say that this summit in Johannesburg was a failure. Some of them say that it was a success. What's your take on it?
I think that I mean this is like the Chinese plan to rule the world, right? So this is the opportunity for China to break with the American domain over the world economy and to take place in in the throne of the largest economy, right? So why? Well, mainly because if they manage to do what they want to do, that is to have a common currency for all the BRICS, and backed by gold. That is what they are saying, right? They are saying that they want to grow to be able to create a currency of their own for international trade, that will be backed by gold. Um, if that really happens, I mean, it could be the end of the United States as the ruling country in the world, right? Because um, if you take into consideration that this new currency will be backed by gold, that is probably the most secure asset in the world, right? Besides the US dollar. And if you think that the BRICS will be probably in the same level of GDP that as the US. I mean, let me see if I can share you the screen for one moment and show you
Mhm.
an interesting chart. Um, so let me see if we are sharing. One moment. Sorry. But it's not sharing, or yes, it's
It is
loading there.
loading, but
Okay,
uh-huh.
let's wait. Well, as we wait, I continue with what I was saying. Okay, so if you look at the GDP by country, there. Okay, so now we are here, right? So this is the GDP of the world, right? So um, if you look at this is for 2022, right? So if you look at United States, we are talking about $25 trillion, right? So and China has around 20 trillion. But if you add India to that it's 3.3 trillion, and Brazil, that it's 1.8 trillion, and Saudi Arabia and Iran, right? So if you add these countries, you will be looking at um, an economic group, right? An economic alliance that has more GDP than the United States, and also more GDP than the other big economic alliance that is the European Union, right? So it could be a change in the world order, right? Because the international transaction, I mean, exports and imports, um, for the main GDP countries will be done in this new currency. So all these countries will not need US dollar anymore to do their trade. So what will happen is that they could sell all their US dollars to change them for this new currency, and I mean that would be some bad news for the dollar, right? So that is like the big picture, right? But I mean, how probable is that? Well, that is what everyone is saying, that this is a crazy idea that will never be implemented, right? So I really don't know how crazy is this idea, but there are some things that made this crazy idea be possible. For example, one reason to add all the Middle East countries is because, besides they have the oil, that it's very important, they are the countries that have more gold in the world. You know, the Arabic countries love getting gold, and all those guys are really big fans of gold, so they accumulate tons and tons of gold, right? So if you think that the BRICS need gold to create a gold-backed currency, and they are joining the BRICS, or they're inviting the BRICS, all the countries that have the most amount of gold, well, that like add up some numbers, right? So if you add up some numbers, I mean, they seem to be going towards that goal. If they are going to do it or not, well, that's the big question, right? I think that's a big question, because if the BRICS cannot get to one unique currency, it's difficult to think that they will get far in terms of economic power, right? Because the yuan, that is the Chinese currency, I mean, of course, it's a very strong currency because it's China and the size of their economy. But you know, there is always like a doubt over the numbers of the Chinese economy, right? Are those numbers correct? Are they lying? They don't show how they calculate their numbers, so they just say, okay, our economy is growing, but you don't see how that was calculated. So, I mean, how can you know if they're really growing or not? They say one day they say their I don't know, their real estate market is as strong as never, and the other day Evergrande broke, and then another biggest company broke. So I mean, it's there's always like a doubt over the Chinese numbers, and that is something that makes the yuan a little bit weaker than it should. So if all these countries adopt the yuan for trade, I don't think that will be a problem for the U.S. economy. If they really manage to create a new currency backed with gold, well, then we could be looking at a potential change in the world order, right? I mean, that will be the deal breaker here.
Awesome. Yes, some experts are saying that India and China, kind of like the split, or splitting those two, is basically the objective for the West in terms of like how to make this BRICS not actually work and not possible. Cool. I have another topic.
Yeah, and also one more thing to add there. Let's say they go one step beyond and they adopt this currency that they create as the euro, no, for a currency for internal use. So in that case, you will be looking at like half of the population of the world using that new currency, right? Because if you adapt China and India and Brazil, that has quite a large population, then you will be looking at like half of the people in the world using one same currency. So that is another thing to take into account, right?
No, that's so true. It's interesting. So since then, since the BRICS summit, there was actually a G20 summit as well, which supposed to have all of those same guys, but in a different kind of environment. It's funny.
Yes.
It's the same Brazil, same China, same Russia, basically just meeting with some of the European counterparts as well. Yeah, it happened in India. It's actually happened. Well, now they call themselves Bharat, just for the events, I guess. But it's interesting scenarios there as well. what do you think about G20 and how, like, was it successful? Most of the experts kind of agree that this G20 was not successful. There was nothing really interesting out of it.
No.
Uh, and yeah, because it was basically getting people together that do not want to be together. So yeah, wasn't that successful. They
Yeah, I
even
mean,
didn't come up with a
yeah,
final.
during lots of during decades, the U.S. has been the country ruling the world, and no one wanted to be the ruler of the world, right? So the U.S. was the one that ruled the world. They managed all the politics in all the world. They controlled everything. So the G20 meetings where like they all met and discussed things, but mainly the decisions were taken before the meeting, and everything was like more harmonic because no one was trying to be the world leader, right? So now the world is going into an era where, well, it has already started, right? But where there are some countries that are discussing this world order, right? So China, Russia, India are discussing this world order, right? So being in an agreement is far more difficult than it was before, right? Because what will be in interest for some countries won't be the interest for other ones, and what will be good for some countries won't be good for the other ones. So I think that G20 is, as you say, I mean, it's a group of people that don't want to be together, and that doesn't have, and they don't want to make any agreements because they really are, what they really want is to make the agreement that they will be, or that will benefit their countries and not the whole world. So no one is caring about the world now. I mean, everyone is caring about who will rule the world in the next, you know, 10 to 20 years, but no one is caring about the world right now. So in that sense, the G20 that was created with that sense, I mean, the G20 was, okay, let's get the top 20 countries in the world together to discuss stuff that will be to improve, or that will be made to improve the world. Um, I mean, that spirit is dead. So as that spirit is dead because no one wants to improve, they want to rule. Yeah, I mean, I think that we will see that we will in the future we will see G20 meetings being more boring, with less agreements, with less important news, and yeah, I mean, that's the name of the game right now, right? Because
Mhm.
also, I mean, you're inviting countries, I mean, that are in a new Cold War, right? I mean, China and USA are like a special, like a kind of Cold War where they are not fighting with guns, but they are fighting with commerce. USA ban Chinese semiconductors. China bans US iPhones, or right. So they are like
Apple,
in a, they are like in a war that is not being fight with guns, but it's being fight with commerce. And so I mean, it's like getting two countries that really hate themselves together in a room, hoping that they will agree on something. I mean, and it's really weird, and very little probable that they can agree on something, right?
Yeah, that's so true because especially with the kind of Cold War, as you said, going on between China and the States.
Yeah, it's Cold War in 2.0, right? It's
Mhm.
Cold War 2.0, right? So yeah, instead of guns, they use commerce.
Yeah, so there was actually news about that. That Huawei, the Chinese telecommunication giant, was able to do some breakthrough in semiconductors and
Yes.
implement a 7 nanometer uh, like chip inside a phone. There was a clash right after, which resulted in iPhones presumably being banned in China.
Yeah, in China. Yeah.
Then an iPhone 15 presentation without Tim Cook was like and Apple stocks just crashing in the last couple of
Yeah,
weeks.
yeah.
Yeah, what do you take on that? Where is this semiconductor wars gonna take us?
I mean, again, there is always an idea of make things make things for the good reasons when there are really bad reasons, right? So what did US say? Okay, US said Chinese is getting very powerful military, so we cannot let China to get more semiconductors since they will use them for military actions in Taiwan, right? So okay, if you look at it like that way, you say, okay, that's something good. I mean, you are trying to avoid a war. In the end, what they are trying to do is to freeze the technology industry in China, right? Because yeah, semiconductors are used for war and for war machinery. It's true, but they are not mainly used for that. They are mainly used for electronics, for cell phones, for so in the end, it's just another move of the U.S. trying to freeze the Chinese economy, and the other side. I mean, and from the other side, the answer is okay. What we will do? Okay, we sell through Singapore, for example. So Singapore buys semiconductors. Singapore sells to China, and everything like gets in the in I mean in a space like in a um like in a moment where no one is getting benefit out of this, right? Because US companies are now worse than they were before because technology companies, right? Because they are getting problems, or I mean, they cannot export the semiconductors to China, that is their first customer. So you are destroying the US producing, the US technology producing companies. Chinese are trying to now make their own semiconductors. They are getting some breakthroughs because they have a lot of money and they can use it to that. Um, but at the end, they still have problems with their industry, and they are freezing also their industries. And at the end, what I think of this kind of wars is that no one is thinking about the people that work in all those companies, right? Because if a Chinese semiconductor company cannot get the semiconductors, they will produce less and they will fire people, and people will be starving because someone doesn't want, or because US doesn't want China to get ruling the world, and the other way down, or right, the other way around also, right? China says, okay, no more iPhones here in China, and China is one of the top buyers of iPhones in the world. So it's probable that Apple will fire people. They will reduce their production if they cannot sell iPhones in China. So, and people again will be fired and will be without their jobs and everything that comes with that. So I think that these guys are like fighting a war over the world order without thinking of the consequences that this war is having for the rest of the world and for the people, right? So, but it's all about power. It in history it has always been about power. So, it's just about that.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. And this technological war going on in between. I mean, it was about 3G, like a 5G networks. Remember,
Yeah,
like when Trump was in the office, they banned Huawei from being able
from
to.
using the 5G. Yeah,
Yeah, in Europe, and now it's just gotten into semiconductors world. So, yeah, the whole stuff is just going in between places. Um, and that being said, there's really interesting thing happening with Germany economy, on the other side of the
yeah,
planet. The Germany's
yeah.
economy is not doing well as well.
and
And
and, and that and that is really bad news for Europe, for the European Union. I mean, the European Union is mostly mostly sustained by Germany right now, right? Because if we look, let's say we look again at this chart, right? So let me share the
uh-huh.
screen again. Uh, so if you look at Europe, right? So here you have it, and you take out the UK because after the Brexit, they don't belong anymore to the European Union. It's all about Germany and France, right? I mean, the other countries are quite small, right? So Spain 1.4 trillion, Italy a little bit more, but it's everything about Germany and France, and mainly about Germany, right? So and so Germany being in the verge of a crisis. I was looking at some news yesterday that said that for 2023 it's expected to the German economy is expected to shrink about 0.4% of the GDP, and inflation is around 6%. That it's a really high inflation for a European country like Germany. So that's is really bad news for Europe, right? If Germany falls, it's quite probable that the rest of the European economies will fall along with Germany. I don't see a scenario where Germany could fall and the other countries would keep on growing, right? Maybe France, because it's quite big, but anyway, I mean, if Germany falls, all the European Union will fall. So that's really bad news for Europe.
And yeah, and lots of Germany's business model was about cheap energy, right? So, and with the lack of cheap energy,
Yeah, I mean,
they're
during decades, I would say they all relied on the cheap energy that Russia provided, right? So, and it was like giving the keys of your house to your enemy, right? So, because they all relied on the cheap energy of Russia, and Russia has always been and always will be an enemy of the United States. So if Europe wants to be an ally of the United States, then it was a matter of time till Russia invaded a country or did something like this, right? I mean, the conflict in the zone of the border of the Russia with Europe, it's I mean, has decades. I mean, since the Soviet Union, they have been trying to recover all those territories, right? Russia has been trying to recover territories since the Soviet Union was dissolved in, I think that 91, I think it was. So it was a matter of time till Russia invaded the country, right? And this time was Ukraine. So, but Europe decided to rely in cheap energy from Russia, and now they are paying the price of that decision, right? I mean, it's like that.
so true, so true. Right before our previous podcast, some doggy is barking over there.
Yeah, it's my neighbor's dog. Sorry, yeah, it's my neighbor's
Awesome.
dog.
Yeah. So, right before our previous podcast, we had this. You gave a prediction that that Powell is going to increase. I mean, that the Federal Reserve is going to increase the interest rate. They did. Well, things are. It seems like the U.S. economy is. It's not actually like it's there. It's just. I mean, there's not much news coming in from like political, or I mean like economic news coming from the States, mostly political stuff going with Biden and so on, and Trump obviously, another case against him. But from the economic perspective, well, what's happening? What do you think is
I think that
happening?
from the economic perspective, everyone is like waiting for the final scenario, right? So the US is facing basically two scenarios. One is the soft landing that Janet Yellen talks about all the time. Soft landing means controlling the inflation without recession, right? That's soft landing, and the recession scenario, right? That's the other scenario. The experts are quite divided in this matter. Right? There are people that think that that US will enter into a short recession. I mean, it will not be like 2008, but it will be like a short recession, maybe one semester of recession, maybe first semester of 2024. Some experts say that there will be the recession, and some experts says that the numbers are quite strong, especially the labor market. The unemployment is in the lowest levels in the modern history of the US. So some guys say, okay, we have a strong labor market, we have a strong consumers. Okay, our consumers are strong. So if consumers are strong and labor market is strong, there is no reason for panic, and the US will be able to control inflation without recession. On the other side, what people say, or what experts think or the reason why some experts think that there will be a recession is mainly because consumers are strong, or what these people say is that consumers are strong because they still have some money from all the money printing of the pandemic, right? They still have some savings of the pandemic. So, and that is running out, right? I listened the other day to of an interview. I think that was the president of, I don't know if it was of Chase Bank, or I don't know, a big bank. I don't recall now which one. That said that he said the U.S. economy is still enjoying, the U.S. consumer is still enjoying all the money that the government gave them during 2020 and 2021. But that money is running out. And when it does, U.S. consumer will have to adjust their spending. And that will be the reason for recession. So when they start consuming less, companies will start producing less, and that will lead to unemployment, and that will lead to recession, right? So that's the theory, right, behind that. So I think that now everyone is like looking at okay, what will happen, right? Because Powell's strategy now is clear. He's determined to reduce the inflation no matter what. If they need to continue rising interest rates, they will do it. If they think that this level of interest rate is enough, they will keep it until inflation rate is on 2%. That will take several more months. So Powell's strategy is clear. So now it's a matter of result, right? So what will happen? I mean, the doubts over that was what happened some months ago, right? Some months ago, we have some doubts regarding Powell's strategies, right? So when some banks started to, like Silicon Valley Bank and other banks started to crash, there were some doubts regarding, okay, what will Powell do, right? Will he avoid a banking crisis and stop raising interest rates, or he will sustain the strategy and keep on fighting inflation? Powell made it clear that his intention is to fight inflation until it reaches 2%, right? So, so that now is quite clear. I mean, there is no doubt that Powell is determined to do that. So now everyone is waiting for the result, right? So everyone is waiting for soft landing or short recession, right? There is no other scenario in the middle. So I mean, it's just a matter of waiting to what scenario will be in the next months.
Great point. So the world economy is waiting. So it's basically just waiting what's going to happen.
With
the
US they are waiting
economy.
What's going to happen. I mean, everyone is waiting. I mean, if you see, for example, if you see the markets, they are now all the markets in the world are now correcting, right? So S&P is going, S&P 500, S&P 500 is going down. If you look at Nasdaq, it's going down. If you look at cryptocurrency, Bitcoin is going down, right? Because they have got all the money that they wanted out of the market. Now they are going to wait and see. And now the strategy is wait and see. So they are taking their profits, they are selling and waiting for the crisis or the soft landing to come, right? For the outcome, right? So yeah, they are just waiting for that.
Cool. And my last question today would be about that then. So since U.S. economy has so much influence over the world's economy.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
IMF just recently gave little bit of a positive or optimistic view of the economy, saying that the world economy seems to be getting better, including like Turkey and
Yeah.
and even some other states as well. What's your prediction, or what are your thoughts about what's going to happen in the next couple of months with world's economy? Yeah, Turkey specifically, or I mean,
I
European
think
Union
that
is in a little bit of a state,
yeah,
but
I think
others.
that it all depends on the US, on the main point here. I mean, if US economy falls into recession, we are looking at a global recession without a doubt there. Um, China, obviously, Chinese economy. Chinese don't speak much about recession. They don't want to talk about it. But if you look at the real estate market, that is like a thermometer of the economy, of the rest of the economy. In China, the real estate market is being destroyed with large, enormous companies being bankrupt. And so, I mean, it will depend on Chinese economy, and in a less critical standpoint, it also Germany is important for Europe, right? I mean, Germany for Europe is quite important. For the rest of the world, the German economy is not that big. For Europe, it is a huge problem if the German economy goes into recession, right? So I think that those are the key points. It's hard to know. I mean, it's hard to tell what will happen, because if this theory of the money related to post-pandemic running out is true, then the outcome will be recession, definitely. I mean, how much how how much money how much more money can Americans spend when their salaries, I mean, is negative. I mean, if you look at real salaries, they have been negative for months, right? So the Americans are running out of money. They are getting even more and more debt. If you look at credit card debts, for
Great.
example, in the US,
Exactly, exactly.
it's exploding. So how much debt can they take, and how much real salary can they lose before they stop consuming? So the theory of they are still consuming the money that the government gave to them during the pandemic could be true. I mean, that could be true. And if that is true and they run out of money, they will start spending less. I mean, it's a natural process. I mean, if you cannot get more money out of your credit cards, and you run out of your savings, and your salary is losing purchase power, well, I mean, the outcome is obvious. You will consume less. I mean, it's inevitable. So,
Yeah.
and in that case, I think that recession will be inevitable. I think that we are still on a path of a global recession. I mean, again, not a large recession, right? We are not looking at 2008 crisis, but we are looking maybe for a soft and short recession for first semester of next year, maybe, or something like that. I think that scenario is still the most probable one. I mean, looking at Chinese real estate market, looking at is spending of consumer spending in the US, looking at Germany with projections of 0.4 negative GPD, GDP, sorry. Looking at those facts, I think that we are looking to a global recession for next year. But I mean, it all depends on the outcome of the US mainly, China and Germany in a smaller piece of the pie, right? So yeah.
Cool. Well, great point, great conversation today. So, well, thanks a lot, Esteban, for jumping on a call today. What I can tell for
Thanks
sure
for
is that
inviting me.
China is not going to have a recession, at least on paper, because they will never say the truth, right?
Yeah, that's a problem. I mean, if they say they are in a recession, it will be a worse recession that the one that they will really have, right? So they will always soften the numbers, right? So yeah, I mean it's like that.
Cool, awesome. Well, nice conversation, nice talk. Alrighty.
Thank you very much. Bye. See you.